Shemai and welcome. Today's video I'm going to talk about how to layer for autumn and winter hiking. So let's get into it. Now before I get started on the layering system, I thought I'd talk about the 4 factors that can determine what layering system you use and what type of clothes you wear. Those 4 factors are firstly the weather, which is going to have a huge impact. Obviously, if it's sunny and dry, it's going to be a lot different to if it's cold and raining. Secondly, the time of year and season you are hiking in. Again, that will factor into the weather. The third thing is the location or where you are hiking. Obviously, conditions tend to be a lot different up in the hills than they are down in the valley, say in the woods, or if you're walking along the coast. So that's something to bear in mind. And fourthly, your own physiology. Everybody's different. Some people run warm, some people get cold very quickly. So again, that is going to play a huge factor in 1, the layering system you choose, but 2, the type of layers you wear. Right, first of all, I'm going to talk about the top half, and then I'll go into the bottom half. So let's start off with the base layer. Now, first up is the base layer. Now, the purpose of this is to wick sweat away from your skin and keep you dry. The fabric should be both breathable and quick drying. 2 materials I recommend are either synthetic, such as polyester, or merino wool. Now, I did start off wearing synthetic base layers. However, as I've got more into hiking and I've got a bit more dosh, I started using merino wool. Although it is more expensive, in my eyes, it's well worth that extra investment. Firstly, it's quick drying. It wicks sweat away from your body. It regulates your body temperature, but it's also got odor resistant properties, meaning you can wear it multiple days in a row without it smelling. For me, that's a really key feature to have, especially when I go away in the van or if I'm short on space if I go abroad. It's also brilliant if you're doing multi-day backpacking trips or hiking trips. Now, another thing about base layers is I always opt for longer sleeve base layers, and sometimes I opt for one with a hood. This is purely because it offers more protection from the elements. Now, one material you definitely want to avoid is cotton. It's a terrible insulator and doesn't dry very quickly, meaning as you build up sweat when you're hiking up the top of the hill, it's not going to dry very quickly and you're going to get very cold and damp, which is going to bring your body temperature down. So definitely avoid cotton. Now, this base layer I am wearing is from Icebreaker. However, if you are looking for more cheaper merino wool, there's some great options on Decathlon. Right, next up is the mid layer. Now, the purpose of the mid layer is to retain body heat and keep you warm. If you think of your layering system as a quesadilla, the mid layer is the juicy filling that provides all of the sustenance. It can come in many forms. It could be a fleece, it could be a hoodie, or in some cases, an insulated jacket. Again, look for a synthetic material, or if you have a bit more money, merino wool, avoiding cotton. Now, the thickness and the type of material would depend on the 4 factors which I spoke about at the start of the video. For me, I'll always opt for a full zip hoodie as it allows me to regulate my body temperature a lot easier. I also like it to be relatively lightweight and packed down quite small. The mid layer is the part of the layering system that tends to come on and off the most, so it'll spend the most time in my bag, so I don't want it taking up too much space. I also like my mid layers to be quite functional. So alongside elasticated thumb cuffs, I also like it to have a hood, as it offers more protection, warmth and comfort. I also like it to have multiple pockets so I can quickly and easily store small and valuable items. Another thing I'll mention is you don't want your mid layer to be too close fitting. The purpose of it is to keep you warm, and you do that by trapping air. So if it is too tight, it means the air won't have a pocket to sit in. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, some people may choose a down jacket as a mid layer, but personally, I will never do that. I run quite warm, and if I throw a synthetic down jacket on or a normal down jacket, I'll just get too hot straight away. Now, mid layer is a place you can also save a lot of costs. You can spend a lot of money on a mid layer, but it's not needed, especially if you're new to hiking. You can get away with wearing an old sports hoodie or something that you can pick up from a charity shop. And finally, remember to manage your mid layer accordingly. Like I spoke about, it's the part of the layering system that comes on and off the most. People tend to throw it on and start hiking and overheat relatively quickly. So I tend to start with it off, and if I do get cold, I'll then add it on, rather than putting it on, overheating, sweating a load, and then having to take it off 10-15 minutes into a hike. Right, next up is the outer shell. Now, the purpose of an outer shell is to protect you from the elements and keep you dry. First and foremost, it should be waterproof and it should have a hood. How waterproof will depend where in the world you're hiking and what the weather conditions are like. You want to aim for a minimum hydrostatic head rating of at least 10,000 millimeters, or if you live in Scotland, double that to 20,000. Alongside being waterproof, your jacket should also be breathable. Now, I wouldn't get caught up too much in the breathability ratings of a jacket, as soon as it does get wet, it kind of renders it unbreathable. Instead, I look for a jacket that has vented pit zips so you can quickly and easily regulate your body temperature on the go. Your jacket should also be brightly coloured. Now, this is contrary to what the Gorpcore trend on social media would have you believe. This is because you're far easier to spot in a brightly coloured jacket. So if something does go drastically wrong on the mountain, you get lost, you get injured, it's far easier to spot you in a brightly coloured jacket than it is in a black jacket or one that blends in with the environment. Your jacket should also be functional. So some features you should look out for are adjustable cuffs and hem. You should also have a hood that is adjustable. The reason for this is to, again, protect you better from the elements and keep you warmer. I'd also look for a jacket that has a little bit of stretch in it. Not only is this a lot more comfortable, but it allows for a better range and freedom of movement. So if you are tackling more technical terrain, such as scrambles, it's easier to reach, and again, it's far more comfortable. You also don't want your jacket to be too big or too tight. You're going to be wearing a mid layer underneath and sometimes a fourth layer, so you want enough space to be able to fit them in. However, you don't want it so big that it looks like you borrowed your dad's coat. Now, the jacket I'm wearing is the Columbia Amply Dry. I've worn this pretty much throughout the year, all over the world. I absolutely love it. Alongside all the things I've spoken about, it's extremely comfortable. It's also relatively lightweight and packs down quite small, which is, again, two features which are good to have, as it will be in and out of your bag quite a lot if it is dry, so you don't want it taking up too much space. Now, alongside the 3 layering system I've just spoken about, I'll also carry an additional 4th layer in my backpack. This is usually the form of an insulated or a down jacket. This kind of comes out in emergency situations, or when I hit a summit and I get very cold, or if the temperatures drop significantly. It's just there as a backup. It's really warm, really lightweight, packs down super small, and it's just there if I need it. I will never tend to hike in this. Again, I've spoken about this. I run quite warm, and if I'm hiking uphill, my heart rate will go through the roof. So if I'm wearing an insulated jacket, I'm just going to get too hot too quickly. So that will just sit in my bag. It'll come out if I get really cold or if I'm waiting around on the summit. So sometimes I'll also carry an additional 5th layer. This is in the form of a secondary base layer. Now, this is a little hack that I sometimes like to utilize if I'm hiking in the winter and I get really hot and I get really sweaty. When I hit the summit, I can just quickly swap over my base layers. So I've got a nice, fresh, dry base layer on, and that sort of sweaty base layer isn't bringing my temperature down, and I can sit up there comfortably. So that's a great hack. If you are a sweaty hiker, or if you are going on a wild camp, it's good to carry an additional base layer with you so you can quickly change into it so you're dry and comfortable. Right, that is the top half done. Let's move on to the bottom half. Now, what I wear on my bottom half is heavily dependent on both the temperature and weather conditions I am hiking in. I'll start with what I wear against my skin. So in terms of underwear, I prefer a merino or synthetic boxer short, which is relatively long, as I find this is far more comfortable, a little bit warmer, and offers a bit more protection. Avoid cotton at all costs. It's a terrible insulator. It doesn't dry very quickly. So as soon as you get a bit sweaty, it's going to come damp, it's going to be cold, it's going to be uncomfortable, which is not what you want when you're up in the hills. Now, in terms of socks, the length and thickness will depend heavily on temperature. I like to wear merino, and I like to wear a crew sock for most of the year. However, as it gets colder, as the snow comes in, I'll opt for a thicker, longer sock. Second pair of socks, I must say, is optional. Now, on my right leg, you can see a calf compression sleeve. I'll sometimes wear this as it, again, offers a bit more warmth, a bit more protection, and it improves blood flow to my pathetically small calves. Right, next up. So next up on my bottom half is kind of the outer shell, and I tend to only wear 2 layers for most of autumn and winter for multiple reasons. Firstly, is I tend to run quite warm and I get quite clammy in my nether region, so I don't want to overheat. Secondly, is that it's far harder to delayer on your lower half than it is your top half. With your top half, you can easily get it on and off, whereas in the winter, with your bottom half, if you're wearing winter boots, sometimes wearing gaiters, trying to strip down and delayer takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I'll usually just wear the 2 layers, the stuff against my skin, and then this outer shell, which usually comes in the form of a pair of soft shell trousers. Now, I prefer soft shell trousers over fully waterproof ones for many reasons. Firstly, they're less bulky, less heavy, and more comfortable. Soft shell trousers are usually wind and weather resistant, protecting you from the elements. They're also comfortable, unrestrictive, and allow for a greater freedom of movement, as well as being very, very functional. Now, in the case that it does rain, I'll carry a pair of waterproof over trousers in my bag, like the fourth layer for my top half. These kind of sit in my bag, sit at the bottom. If conditions do deteriorate, it becomes really, really wet, I'll just pull them out of my bag, I'll throw them over the top. They add that extra layer of protection, and they also add that extra layer of warmth. However, if conditions do get significantly colder, I'm talking negative figures, -5 and below, then sometimes I will either wear a pair of insulated soft shell trousers, which are fleece lined, adding that extra warmth, or in the extreme condition when it gets very, very cold, I'll then add a third layer on my bottom half, and this will come in the form of synthetic or merino sort of long johns that go underneath. But anyway, I think that's it from me. Hope you found that useful. Hope you found that enjoyable, seeing me in my pants. I've been out here for far too long. This has taken far too long to film. It's actually very cold, but like and subscribe and all that. Until next time, diolch yn fawr.